Imagine this. A woman with everything, a job, a home, her dignity, is dragged off the streets of Detroit in handcuffs, screaming that she's not a thief. How did she get there? A week ago, she made a bet that turned her life upside down. Stay. This story is wilder than you think. Comment. Where you're watching the video, and here we begin. The air in downtown Detroit smelled like burnt rubber and desperation. A mix of exhaust fumes from the beat-up cars on Woodward Avenue and the faint tang of rust from the abandoned factories looming in the distance. Claire Bennett stood there, shivering in a threadbare jacket 2 sizes too big, her hands clutching a clinking pile of aluminum cans like they were her last lifeline. Her left ankle throbbed, probably twisted from tripping over a cracked sidewalk earlier, and her stomach growled loud enough to drown out the hum of the city. She didn't look like Claire Bennett anymore, the polished marketing exec from the suburbs with her sleek ponytail and Starbucks runs. She looked like one of them, a nobody, a ghost. "Move it, lady. You're scaring off my customers." Carl Dawson's voice boomed from the doorway of his corner store, Dawson's Quick Mart, a squat brick building with flickering neon signs. He waved a meaty hand at her, his gray mustache twitching with irritation. "I said get lost." Claire straightened up, wincing as her ankle screamed in protest. "I didn't steal anything. I just want to recycle these damn cans." Her voice cracked, raw from exhaustion and the cold that bit through her thin layers. She held up the cans, their dented silver glinting weakly under the streetlights. "Yeah, right," Carl sneered, stepping closer. "I've heard that one before. Next thing I know, half my inventory's gone. Get out of here before I call the cops." "I'm not a thief," Claire snapped, her pride flaring up despite the mess she was in. She'd spent all day scrounging these cans from overflowing trash bins, dodging dirty looks and the occasional thrown bottle. She was tired, hungry, and pissed off. "You don't get it. I need this." Carl's eyes narrowed. "Oh, I get it. You need it for your next fix, huh? I've seen your kind." He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. "Last chance, sweetheart." Before Claire could argue, the wail of a siren cut through the night. 2 cops rolled up in a patrol car, lights flashing red and blue against the grimy storefront. A small crowd gathered. Some guy in a tiger's cap, a woman with a stroller, a couple of teens snickering behind their hoodies. They stared at Claire like she was a sideshow act. "Hands where we can see 'em," one cop barked, stepping out with his hand on his holster. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with a buzz cut and a scowl that said he'd rather be anywhere else. Claire froze, the cans slipping from her grip and clattering to the pavement. "This is a mistake." "I wasn't—" "Save it," the other cop interrupted, older and stockier, already pulling out cuffs. "We got a call about a disturbance. You matched the description." "Disturbance?" Claire's voice rose, panic clawing at her chest. "I was just standing here." Carl crossed his arms, smug as hell. "She's been harassing me all day, probably high as a kite." "That's a lie!" Claire shouted, but the cuffs clicked around her wrists anyway, cold metal biting into her skin. The crowd murmured, "Junkie. Typical. Get her out of here." And Claire felt her face burn with shame. How the hell had it come to this? As the cops shoved her toward the car, her mind spun back to where it all started. 1 week ago. One stupid bet. It was a Tuesday afternoon, warm and golden, the kind of day that made the suburbs of Detroit feel almost peaceful. Claire sat across from Stacy Miller at Brood Awakening, a hip little coffee shop off 12 Mile Road. The place smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon, and the hum of conversation mixed with the clatter of mugs. Claire sipped her latte, scrolling through her phone when Stacy started griping again. "Another one of those bums was hanging around my store today," Stacy said, stabbing her fork into a slice of carrot cake. She was all sharp edges, short blonde bob, leather jacket, a no-nonsense vibe honed from years running a discount clothing shop downtown. Kept begging my customers for change. I had to chase him off with a broom. Claire glanced up, frowning. Maybe he was just hungry, Stace. Not everyone out there's a con artist. Stacy snorted, rolling her eyes. Oh, please, they're all the same. Lazy as hell, living off our taxes. If they wanted a job, they'd get one. End of story. That's not fair, Claire shot back, setting her cup down a little too hard. Some people just hit a rough patch. They need a hand, not a broom to the face. Stacy leaned forward, smirking. You're so naive, Claire. You think it's that simple? Fine, hotshot, prove it. Go live like one of them for a week. No phone, no wallet, no fancy SUV. Just you and the streets. If you make it, I'll eat my words. If you don't, you're volunteering with me at the food bank for a year. Deal? Claire laughed, a sharp, confident sound. You're on. I'll show you they don't have it easy. Piece of cake. Famous last words, Stacy said, grinning like she'd already won. That first day hit her like a freight train. Claire stepped out of her cozy, split-level house in Warren, leaving behind her keys, her debit card, her whole damn life. She'd swapped her tailored blazer for an old hoodie from the thrift store and a pair of jeans with a hole in the knee. She had $3 in her pocket, her starting fund, she'd joked to herself. How hard could it be? By noon she was starving. The sun beat down on 8 Mile Road, and the air stank of gasoline and fried food from the fast food joints lining the strip. Her $3 bought her a gas station hot dog, but it was gone in 10 minutes, and her stomach still ached. She figured she'd ask for leftovers. People threw out good stuff all the time, right? She stopped at a Burger King, peering through the smudged glass at the trays of half-eaten fries and burgers left behind. She took a deep breath and approached the counter, where a teenage cashier with a nose ring barely looked up from her phone. Hey, excuse me, Claire started, forcing a smile. Could I maybe have some of the stuff people didn't finish? I'm kinda short on cash. The girl's eyes flicked up, hard and cold. We don't do handouts. Get out of here before I call the manager. I'm not begging, Claire protested, but the cashier was already waving her off like a fly. Out, she snapped, and when Claire hesitated, the girl grabbed a phone from under the counter. You want the cops instead? Claire stumbled back, heart pounding, and tripped over the curb as she fled. She hit the ground hard, scraping her palms on the gritty asphalt. A couple walking by laughed. Nice one, lady. And Claire sat there, staring at her bleeding hands, her breath hitching. This can't be that hard, right? She muttered, but the words felt hollow. She pulled herself up, brushing off the dirt, and limped down the street, the city stretching out like a maze she didn't know how to navigate. By nightfall, she was curled up on a bench near Cass Corridor, the wind cutting through her hoodie like a knife. The sounds of Detroit hummed around her, car horns, distant shouts, the rumble of a freight train. Her ankle ached from that earlier fall, and her stomach was a tight knot of hunger. She hugged herself, staring at the flickering streetlights, and wondered if she'd bitten off more than she could chew. Was Stacy right? Was this all just a dumb stunt? Or was there something here she hadn't seen yet? Hey! A voice broke through her thoughts. A kid, maybe 10, tossing a crumpled dollar her way. You look like you need it. Claire blinked, caught off guard. Thanks, she whispered, clutching the bill. Maybe there was hope after all. Or maybe she was just fooling herself. So what do you think? Can Claire handle it, or is she overdoing it? Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for part next, because things are about to get crazy. The second day in Detroit's underbelly hit Claire like a punch to the gut. The city didn't sleep. It growled. She woke up on that splintered bench near Cass Corridor, her neck stiff from the cold metal, her hoodie damp with morning dew. The air carried a sour mix of garbage and motor oil, and her stomach rumbled louder than the semis rumbling down I-75 a few blocks away. That crumpled dollar from the kid last night was still in her pocket, but it wouldn't buy much. She needed a plan. Claire hobbled toward a row of dented trash cans behind a dive bar on Grand River Avenue, her ankles still tender from yesterday's fall. The bins were overflowing, pizza boxes, beer cans, a soggy burger wrapper with half a patty still inside. She hesitated, her nose wrinkling at the stench, then reached in. "You've got this," she muttered, snagging a couple of aluminum cans and the burger scrap. It wasn't pretty, but it was something. That's when she heard it, a sharp, angry shout. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Claire spun around, nearly dropping her haul. A woman stood there, maybe late 20s, with tangled brown hair and a faded Red Wings jacket. She was clutching a plastic bag stuffed with cans, and a scrawny kid with big eyes peeked out from behind her, 8, maybe 9, in a coat 2 sizes too small. The woman's glare could have cut glass. "Those are our cans," she snapped, stepping closer. "You think this is a game? That's our dinner you just trashed." Claire's cheeks burned. I didn't mean to. I just—" She gestured helplessly at the spilled cans, her voice faltering. "I'm sorry, okay?" "Sorry doesn't fill my kid's stomach," the woman shot back. She bent down, snatching up the scattered cans with quick, practiced hands. The boy, Joey, Claire would later learn, watched silently, his breath puffing out in little clouds in the chilly air. "Look, I'll help you pick 'em up," Claire offered, crouching despite the ache in her ankle. She grabbed a couple of cans, but the woman waved her off. "We don't need your pity," she said, her voice tight. "Just stay out of our way." She turned to leave, tugging Joey along, but then the kid started coughing, a wet, rattling sound that made Claire's chest tighten. He shivered, his thin coat flapping uselessly in the wind. "Wait," Claire called, shrugging off her hoodie without thinking. It was her only layer against the cold, but she held it out anyway. "Take this, he's freezing." The woman, Jess Harper as Claire would find out, stopped, eyeing the hoodie like it might bite. "What's your angle?" she asked, suspicion dripping from every word. "No angle," Claire said, her teeth already chattering. "Just take it." Jess hesitated, then snatched the hoodie and draped it over Joey's shoulders. "Don't think this makes us buddies," she muttered, but her tone softened a fraction. She grabbed Joey's hand and walked off, leaving Claire standing there in her thin t-shirt, goosebumps prickling her arms. By midday, Claire was regretting that decision. The wind off the Detroit River sliced through her like a blade, and her fingers were numb as she dug through another dumpster near a gas station on Jefferson Avenue. She'd collected maybe a dozen cans, enough for $1 or $2 if she could find a recycling machine that didn't reject her. That's when Tommy Slick Vega slunk into her life. He was all wiry energy, with a crooked grin and a Pistons cap pulled low over his eyes. "Rough day, huh, newbie?" he said, leaning against the dumpster like he owned it. "You look like you could use a friend." Claire straightened up, wary. "I'm fine. Just figuring things out." "Sure you are," Tommy said, flashing that grin. "Name's Tommy. Folks call me Slick. You got any cash on you?" She clutched her cans tighter. "Not much. Why?" "My little sister's sick," he said, his voice dropping low, almost sincere. "Needs medicine. Coughing her lungs out, poor kid. $5'd get her something from the corner store. You help me, I'll owe you one." Claire's gut twisted. She'd seen Joey's cough earlier. Maybe this was real. She fished out the crumpled dollar and a handful of change she'd scrounged. "This is all I've got," she said, handing it over. Tommy's eyes lit up. "You're a saint, lady. A real saint." He pocketed the cash and bolted, leaving Claire with a flicker of hope, until she spotted him 10 minutes later, cracking open a tall boy of Miller Lite with a couple of rough-looking guys across the street. He caught her stare and winked, raising the can in a mock toast. "You lying jerk!" Claire shouted, storming over despite her limp. Her voice echoed off the brick walls, drawing a few curious glances. Tommy laughed, unfazed. "Survival's a hustle, lady. Get used to it. You want to make it out here, you gotta toughen up." Claire's fists clenched, heat rising in her chest. "You said that was for your sister." "Maybe I got a sister. Maybe I don't," he said, shrugging. "Point is, you're still breathing. Be grateful." He sauntered off with his crew, leaving Claire fuming and feeling like a fool. Was everyone out here a liar? Was Stacy right all along? The doubt gnawed at her as the sun dipped low, painting the sky over Detroit in streaks of orange and gray. Claire was back near Carl Dawson's store, scavenging his trash bins again, quieter this time, hoping he wouldn't notice. She reached for a soda can, but her foot slipped on a patch of grease, and she went down hard, scraping her shin bloody on the pavement. "Son of a—" she hissed, clutching her leg. "Watch it, clumsy," a gruff voice said. She looked up to see a man, mid-40s maybe, with a scruffy beard and tired eyes, crouching a few feet away. He wore a faded army jacket and carried a tattered backpack, but his hands were steady as he pulled a ragged strip of cloth from it. "You're bleeding all over the place." "I'm fine," Claire said, brushing him off, but he ignored her, wrapping the cloth around her shin with a practiced touch. The pressure stung, but it stopped the bleeding. "You a doctor or something?" she asked, half joking. He paused, his jaw tightening. "Used to be. Doesn't matter now." He tied off the makeshift bandage and stood, brushing dirt off his knees. "Name's Ethan. Stay out of Dawson's sight. He hates folks like us poking around." Claire bristled. "I'm not folks like us. This is just temporary." Ethan raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "Sure it is. Mind your own business, then." He turned to go, his boots scuffing the pavement, but something in his voice, quiet, steady, stuck with her. He wasn't like Tommy. He wasn't yelling or hustling. He was just there. She watched him disappear around the corner, her shin throbbing under the bandage. For the first time, she wondered if there was more to these streets than she'd thought. Maybe not everyone was a con. Maybe some were just broken. That night, Claire found Jess and Joey again, huddled near a rusted barrel with a small fire crackling inside. Jess nodded at her, a grudging acknowledgement, and Joey, wrapped in Claire's hoodie, gave a shy wave. Claire sat down, the warmth seeping into her chilled bones, and for a moment, she didn't feel so alone. "Thanks for earlier," Jess said, her voice low. "Didn't expect that." Claire shrugged, staring into the flames. "Neither did I." She thought about Tommy's betrayal, Ethan's quiet hands, and the kid's cough. Maybe she'd been wrong about all this. Maybe there was something worth seeing here. The fifth day on Detroit's streets felt like a lifetime to Claire. The city's pulse, its horns, its shouts, its constant grind, had burrowed into her skull, and the cold had settled deep in her bones. Her t-shirt was grimy, her ankles still ached, and her hands were raw from digging through trash. She'd lost track of how little she'd eaten. A stale donut here, a half sandwich there. But the hunger was a dull roar now, drowned out by sheer exhaustion. She wasn't proving anything to Stacy anymore. She was just trying to survive. Claire limped along a stretch of East Jefferson, clutching a plastic bag with maybe 20 cans she'd scrounged from alleys and park benches. It wasn't much, but it could get her a burger, maybe some coffee to warm her up. She spotted Dawson's Quick Mart up ahead, its recycling machine humming faintly outside. Perfect. She'd cash these in and get the hell out before Carl spotted her. She didn't make it 10 steps before his voice cut through the air like a chainsaw. "You again? I told you to stay away from my place." Carl stormed out, his apron flapping, a baseball bat in one hand. His gray eyes burned with a mix of fury and disgust. Claire froze, clutching her bag tighter. "I'm not stealing, okay? I just want to use the machine." "Bullshit," Carl spat, pointing the bat at her. "Every time one of you creeps comes around, something goes missing. I'm done with it. Get lost." "I'm not a thief." Claire's voice cracked, desperation bubbling up. "I'm hungry, I'm hurt, and I've been hauling these cans all damn day. Just let me—" "Save it!" Carl barked, stepping closer. "I'm calling the cops. You're done." He pulled out his phone, and Claire's heart sank. She couldn't outrun him. Not with her ankle. She couldn't fight him. Not with that bat. She was trapped. The siren came fast, a wailing beast that drowned out her pleas. 2 cops rolled up, the same ones from that first night, buzzcut and stocky. Claire's stomach dropped as they climbed out, hands on their belts. "Hands up now," Buzzcut shouted, his scowl deeper than before. "We got a call about a trespasser." "This is insane," Claire yelled, raising her trembling hands. The bag of cans hit the ground with a pathetic clatter. "I wasn't doing anything wrong." Carl crossed his arms, smug as ever. "She's been harassing me all week, probably casing the joint." "That's a lie," Claire's voice broke, tears stinging her eyes. She couldn't believe this. Cuffed again, dragged toward the patrol car while a small crowd gawked. Stocky grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back, and the cuffs clicked tight. "You don't get it. I'm not one of them." Yeah, Buzzcut muttered, shoving her into the back seat. "Tell it to the judge, sweetheart." The door slammed shut, and Claire slumped against the cracked vinyl, her breath fogging the window. The precinct was a blur. Harsh fluorescent lights, the stink of sweat and stale coffee, a desk cop who barely looked up as they booked her. Disturbing the peace, they called it. She sat in a holding cell, staring at the graffiti-scratched walls, her mind racing. This wasn't just about the bet anymore. This was about a system that didn't care, that saw her as trash because she looked the part. How did anyone climb out of this? Hours later, the cell door clanged open. "Bennett, you're out," the desk cop grunted. Claire stumbled to her feet, confused, until she saw them, Jess and Ethan standing by the front desk. Jess's jaw was tight, her arms crossed, and Ethan looked like he hadn't slept in days, his army jacket hanging loose on his frame. Joey wasn't there, probably left with someone they trusted. "You?" Claire rasped, her throat dry. "How'd you—" "Shut up and let's go," Jess said, tossing her a glance that was half irritation, half relief. She handed the cop a crumpled wad of bills, maybe $10, scraped together from God knows where. Ethan didn't say a word, just nodded at Claire to follow. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap, sharp and cold. Claire hugged herself, still reeling. "Why'd you help me?" "You didn't have to." Ethan stopped, his boots scuffing the pavement. "Because I've been where you are," he said, his voice low, steady. "Nobody listening, nobody caring. I know how it feels." Claire blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" He didn't look at her, just stared at the flickering streetlight ahead. "My wife, Sarah, she got sick. Cancer. I was a surgeon, top of my game, but I couldn't save her. Watched her waste away in a hospital bed while I stood there, useless." His hands clenched into fists, then relaxed. "After she died, I fell apart. Stopped working, stopped paying bills, stopped giving a damn. Next thing I knew, I was on a park bench just like you." Claire's breath caught. She'd pegged him as a mystery, maybe a burnout. But this was a gut punch. "You were a doctor," she whispered, more to herself than him. Still am, in a way, Ethan said, a bitter edge to his voice. Just don't have the fancy office anymore. Jess snorted, breaking the tension. He's a pain in the ass, but he's patched up half the folks out here. Me and Joey included. Claire looked between them, her mind spinning. I don't get it. Why stay out here if you could... Could what? Ethan cut her off, his eyes finally meeting hers. Go back? You think it's that easy? Once you're down here, the world doesn't want you back. They see you as garbage, same as Carl sees us. That name snapped something in Claire. Carl, the bat, the cuffs. She clenched her fists, anger flaring. He's wrong about you, about all of us. Maybe, Ethan said, shrugging. Doesn't change much. But it did, for Claire. She thought of Jess giving up her last dime, Ethan's steady hands on her shin, Joey's cough. These weren't bums or creeps. They were people, and she'd been blind to it. We can change it, she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. We can do something. Jess raised an eyebrow. What? You gonna save the world now? Not the world, Claire said, a spark igniting in her chest. Just this corner of it. The next morning, Claire tracked Carl down. He was sweeping the sidewalk outside his store, grumbling to himself, when she marched up, still limping but fueled by a fire she hadn't felt in days. We need to talk, she said, planting herself in his path. Carl scowled, gripping the broom like a weapon. I got nothing to say to you. Then listen, Claire shot back. You owe Ethan more than you think. He saved your life once, cut you open and fixed your heart. What, 15 years ago? Dr. Ethan Cole. Ring a bell? Carl froze, his face paling. How'd you... He told me, Claire lied, banking on a hunch. She'd pieced it together. Ethan's skills, his age, Carl's gruff familiarity with folks like us. It was a long shot, but it hit. You're alive because of him, and now you treat him like dirt? Carl's mouth opened, then shut. He looked away, the broom sagging in his hands. That was a long time ago. Doesn't change the fact I've been burned too many times since. Maybe, Claire said, stepping closer. But what if we gave you a reason not to be? What if your store was a hub? Food, clothes, a place for people to start over? You'd get help, not thieves. Ethan and I could make it work. Carl stared at her, skepticism warring with something softer in his eyes. You're crazy, lady. Maybe, Claire said, grinning for the first time in days. But I'm not wrong. That night, Claire sat with Ethan and Jess by the fire barrel, sketching plans on a scrap of cardboard. I'm done with the bet, she said, tossing a stick into the flames. This isn't about Stacy anymore. It's about us. Ethan nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Your trouble, Bennett. Good trouble, Jess added, smirking. For once, they were a team. The seventh day dawned gray and heavy over Detroit, the sky spitting a cold drizzle that soaked Claire to the bone. She stood outside Dawson's Quick Mart, her hair plastered to her face, her hands stuffed in the pockets of a borrowed coat from Jess. The past week had carved lines into her. She was thinner, rougher, her eyes sharper than they'd ever been behind a desk. But she wasn't the same Claire who'd laughed off Stacy's bet. She was someone new, someone who'd seen too much to turn back. Inside the store, Ethan and Jess were setting up folding tables Carl had grudgingly dragged out from storage. The plan was simple but ambitious. Turn the Quick Mart into a drop-in spot for folks like them. Food, clothes, a chance to talk to someone about a job or a doctor. Claire had spent the last 2 days knocking on doors, begging local businesses for donations, her voice hoarse from pitching the idea. She'd scored some canned goods from a diner on Woodward, a stack of coats from a thrift shop on Gratiot, even a promise of free coffee from a gas station clerk who'd taken pity on her. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Tonight was the test. They'd spread the word through the streets, Jess talking to her crew, Ethan hitting the parks and shelters. Claire had even roped in Carl, who'd muttered something about not getting his hopes up, but still hung a handwritten sign in the window. Help here, no BS. Now they were waiting to see if anyone would show. The first hour was quiet, too quiet. Rain pattered on the awning, and the street stayed empty except for a stray dog sniffing at a puddle. Claire paced, her boots squelching, her nerves fraying. "What if no one comes?" she asked, glancing at Ethan. He was sorting a box of dented soup cans, his face calm but tired. "They'll come," he said, not looking up. "Or they won't. Either way, we tried." Jess snorted from her spot by the door, arms crossed. "Real inspiring, Doc. Maybe stick to bandaging and skip the pep talks." Claire forced a laugh, but it died fast. She'd poured everything into this, her pride, her energy, her last shred of hope. If it flopped, what was the point of the past week? What was the point of any of it? Then the trouble started. A pickup truck roared up, its tires screeching as it parked crooked across two spots. 3 guys climbed out, big, loud, wearing Carhartt jackets and scowls. The leader, a barrel-chested dude with a buzz cut, banged on the store window. "What's this crap?" he yelled, jabbing a finger at the sign. "You turning this place into a flop house?" Carl stepped outside, his jaw tight. "It's my store, pal. I do what I want." "Yeah?" Buzzcut sneered, stepping closer. "We live 3 blocks over. Don't need these bums stinking up our street. Shut it down, or we'll do it for you." Claire's pulse spiked. She pushed past Carl, planting herself between him and the guy. "Back off," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're helping people, not hurting anyone." "Helping?" Another guy laughed, a wiry punk with a lip ring. "You're just feeding the rats. They'll keep coming back." "They're not rats," Claire snapped, heat rising in her chest. "They're people. You don't get it." "Don't care." Buzzcut cut her off, shoving her shoulder hard enough to make her stumble. "Last warning." That's when the crowd showed up. Not the mob Claire had feared, but the ones she'd hoped for. A dozen folks, maybe more, shuffled out of the rain. Old men in tattered coats, a woman with a grocery cart, a young guy with a limp. Jess's people. Ethan's people. They didn't say much, just stood there, watching, their faces hollow but expectant. Buzzcut hesitated, outnumbered but not backing down. "You asked for it," he growled, grabbing a folding chair and hurling it at the storefront. Glass cracked, and the crowd flinched. Claire lunged forward. "Stop it!" But Ethan yanked her back as Carl swung his bat, missing by inches. It was chaos, shouts, shattering glass, the wail of a siren in the distance. Claire's heart hammered as she helped Jess pull people inside, away from the fight. "We can't lose this," she yelled, her voice raw. "Not now." Then it hit her. They were losing. The tables were trashed, the donations scattered, and the cops were coming. She sank to her knees amid the wreckage, rain dripping through the broken window, and screamed into her hands. "I can't let this fail. Not after everything." The cops broke it up fast. Buzzcut and his crew hauled off in cuffs, Carl nursing a bruised knuckles, the crowd scattering back into the night. Claire sat on the curb, soaked and shaking, staring at the mess. Ethan crouched beside her, silent, while Jess kicked a dented can across the lot. "Told you it wouldn't be easy," she muttered. Claire didn't answer. She felt hollow, like the city had chewed her up and spat her out. Then a shadow fell over her. Tommy, Slick Vega of all people, grinning like a jackal with a plastic bag in his hand. "Rough night, huh?" he said, tossing the bag at her feet. It clinked, coins, a few crumpled bills. "Heard about your little project. Figured I owed you." Claire stared, dumbfounded. "What's this?" "Clean cash," Tommy said, shrugging. "No hustle this time. Got it from some buddies who felt bad about your window. Ain't much. $50 maybe. But it's yours." She opened her mouth, then shut it. "Why?" "'Cause you're nuts," he said, laughing. "And maybe I don't hate that." He tipped his cap and sauntered off, leaving Claire clutching the bag like a lifeline. That's when Stacy showed up. She pulled up in her beat-up Honda, stepping out with a frown that softened when she saw the damage. "Jesus, Claire," she said, shaking her head. "You win, okay? You didn't just survive. You built something." Claire stood, her legs wobbly but her spine straight. "It's not about winning anymore. Help me fix this." Stacy sighed, then pulled an envelope from her purse. $200 from the store. Don't make me regret it. 2 weeks later, the Quick Mart was different. The window was patched with plywood, but the tables were back, stocked with soup cans and coats. A sign-up sheet for job leads hung on the wall, and Ethan had a corner with a first aid kit, patching up cuts and colds. Claire stood by the door watching a line form, slow, steady, real. Jess brought Joey, who grinned at her from under a new scarf. Carl grumbled but handed out coffee, muttering about damn do-gooders. It wasn't perfect. Some folks took the help and vanished. Others argued, hoarded, refused to trust. The money, Tommy's, Stacy's, a few more donations Claire had scraped together, wouldn't last forever. But it was something. A start. Claire caught Ethan's eye across the room. "Think we can keep this going?" she asked, her voice quiet. He shrugged, a faint smile breaking through. "Maybe, long as you don't quit." She nodded, stepping outside to breathe the cold Detroit air. The skyline stretched out, crumbling factories, flickering lights. A city that didn't give up. "Maybe we can't save everyone," she murmured to herself, "but we can damn well try." Stacy joined her, hands in her pockets. "You're crazy. You know that?" "Yeah," Claire said, grinning, "but it's catching." The rain had stopped, and the street was quiet again. Claire looked at the line of faces, tired, hopeful, human, and felt something settle in her chest. Not victory, not defeat, but purpose. She'd come out here to prove a point. She was staying to make one. And that's Claire's story. From the streets to a spark of change. What'd you think? Could you fight like she did? Hit subscribe and leave a comment. I want to hear your take. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next one.